So recently, there's been a lot of discourse about the one and only Hassan Piker, and so pretty much this has been coming from, if you're familiar with Third Way. So Third Way is there's this concept called a Blue Dog Democrat and a Third Way Democrat. Both of these are groups within the Democratic caucus that have existed for quite some time, at least 20 years, I believe. And their whole argument is, well, some Democrats can win doing all that lefty, gay, transgender stuff, but we're the good old heartland Democrats, and we've got to be moderate. And they've been a parasitic force in the party ever since, and since before as well. It didn't really take Third Way to make Democrats dog shit. Third Way is just one of many strategies that that Democrats have used to keep themselves dog shit. That being said, these arguments from Third Way are very simple, very plain. It's really just, Hassan Piker said that Jews are inbred. Hassan Piker said this. He said America deserves 9/11, etc., and things like that. And it's really funny for a number of reasons. Now, the thing that's funniest about this is that Hassan Piker has been here for quite some time, and he's been very prominent for quite some time as well. I started watching Hassan back in 2018, early on in his streaming career, when he was still doing videos at the Young Turks, which was a big part of my media diet back in the day, back in 2018, 2017, around those times. And Hassan, he's been here doing the same shit ever since. So it's really funny that all of a sudden there's this really big push to kind of say, well, Hassan is an evil bigot, whatever. Hassan hates black people. He hates women, all kinds of silly nonsense, quite frankly. And ultimately, the reason for it is actually quite simple. And this is an important thing when it comes to politics. It's very easy to get lost in the conversation, to get lost in the discourse of it all. But at the end of the day, it's very simple to identify the causes and effects. When you look at this whole campaign against Hassan Piker, the cause is that Hassan Piker is not just prominent for his political views the way that he has previously been, but that Hassan Piker is actually making an impact in changing people's political views. The fact that over the last 3 years, Israel's gone from, middling popularity, I support Israel and we've got a, only democracy in the Middle East, blah, 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 to an open, blatant genocide state. And that not only have, normal Democrats and normal Americans in general recognize this, but many of them recognize this because of Hassan Piker. And so what's being viewed right now as this sort of fight between the Democratic establishment and Hassan is really a fight between the Democratic establishment, these third way moderate voices, and the progressive anti-Israel policy that voters are now demanding. So, if you ask me, in general, when it comes to Hassan Piker, the strategy with dealing with him has been for a long time to just kind of, generate this misinformation about him, have people not really understand who he is, what he believes in, and create these sort of fake stories. I'm going to put on the thumbnail Hassan shocking his dog Kaya, which is, the most recent controversy. Because again, these things aren't real. No one cares about this. This is all just done in the interest of making people dislike Hassan Piker and associate him with things that they don't like. Whether that be your love for animals or your love for women or your love for Democrats, whatever it is, Hassan Piker is against you. That's been the strategy. And it's really funny on the one hand. It's funny that this is like the shit slinging is the approach that they're taking. But at the same time, it's something to pay attention to because Democrats were not fighting against anti-Israel views in the past the way they are now. Democrats used to be able to effectively shut down the speech that people were allowed to have within their party, and were very effectively able to say, "Hey, well, you can't say that. That's anti-Semitic. You can't say that. This is our allies, our partnership. We're going to lose the election. Blah 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 blah." The really funny thing, though, about these arguments is that they don't make any sense anymore. It is no longer the case that you can say that Democrats need to choose a moderate candidate in order to win. Because Democrats chose 2-3 moderate candidates back to back to back, starting with Hillary Clinton's evil ass. Hillary Clinton's fucking evil sopping from her goddamn pantsuit was the first choice, and she lost to Donald Trump. She won the popular vote, and obviously, the Electoral College is an issue, and Hillary Clinton, in any functional democracy, would be the president. Sure, I can take those arguments, but that's not what we deal with. That's not what we deal with. We don't have the functional democracy that I wish we do, that many people wish we do. We have this Electoral College. Hillary Clinton lost. Then, in 2020, you had Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Now, this election is really, really funny when it comes to two things. First thing being the way that Joe Biden won the primary. Joe Biden was never a strong candidate and was never a good candidate. He never represented anything positive. He never had any sort of vision for the country. Joe Biden's entire argument was, hey, Jack, I'm going to heal the soul of America. Ever since Donald Trump's been elected, the soul of America. He's fighting the soul. I'm fighting for the soul. And this like stupid ass boomer politics was somewhat effective. There were a lot of people who were like, well, Joe Biden, he's such a nice guy. But the real thrust of how Joe Biden got elected were, first of all, having the media on his side. And second of all, calls from Obama that got all the middling candidates to drop out. The race was always between Bernie and Joe Biden, but this highlighted the race being between Bernie and Joe Biden. And then having all those candidates endorse Joe Biden is literally the only reason his fucking carcass ass was able to be drug across the Democratic primary finish line, and then after that, the presidential election finish line. What we need to acknowledge when it comes to this election is that this was the first and only, still, election during a peak pandemic. Obviously, COVID is not just gone and it's not just finished. But in terms of our reaction to it as a society, we were in the throes of it, in the heat of it. We were all scared, terrified, locked down. And Donald Trump is, we've got to bring UV light inside of the body. I'm trying to find it out. We're looking for people. They're saying UV light kills the virus. We got to put the light inside of the body. Maybe we can bring bleach into the body, kill the virus. Donald Trump's a ridiculous clown. He always has been. And so Joe Biden won. Great. However, for 4 years of Joe Biden's presidency, he failed on every single issue that has become relevant to this day. He failed on immigration, not because Joe Biden wasn't anti-immigrant enough, but because Joe Biden offered no actual solution to the problems that we face. He failed on climate change. Why did he fail on climate change? The IRA is stupid. That's why. The IRA is dumb. You cannot subsidy your way out of a civilizational threat. You cannot. If an asteroid was barreling towards Earth, nobody would find it reasonable to say, "Yeah, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to place spend $400 billion over the course of a decade into subsidies for companies that research asteroid physics and attempt to knock the asteroid." No, we would fucking attack it. We would say, "Guys, this is a problem. We need to solve it. What do we need to do? What do we need to sacrifice? How much time can we put aside for this?" We would, put our whole damn effort into it. Climate change is much the same, except, much like is the case in all politics, when things are abstracted, when they're hard to directly link one thing to the other, you're able to say, let's just not worry about this. This can't be a problem because it's not a problem now. Joe Biden also failed on increasing the minimum wage. He increased the minimum wage to $15 an hour for federal workers, which is great, I guess. However, what you must also acknowledge with that is that federal work, first of all, the fight for 15 was a movement in 2016. That is a decade ago. When you look at the inflation between now and then, the fight for 15 is now a fight for 25. And it sounds just as crazy today to say that people need a $25 an hour minimum wage as it sounded to say a $15 an hour minimum wage back then, if not more so. And that is only evidence of the fact that we have such an unequal country where people are being where people are not competing for resources against other people with similar lives as themselves. They're competing for resources against the very, 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 and I can keep going for a long time, the very rich. And that's a horrible situation. It's a horrible predicament because what it creates is a dynamic where you as a normal person are not able to identify why it is that all your prices are increasing and why it is that you can't have a normal life when you see on TV and you see in the media all of these flashy, new yacht, new jet, new this, new that, whatever. But then the worst failure of Joe Biden is not recognizing that he was an old blathering idiot who could never win another election again. It was not recognizing the fact that standing side by side with somebody who was actively conducting a genocide, providing weapons and political cover to an individual actively covering a genocide will, in fact, harm your party and it will harm your prospects for winning another election. And Joe Biden lost. So this whole argument that what we need is Kamala Harris, who replaced Joe Biden and did all the same shit Joe Biden did, except worse, with less charisma and with less of a basis on which to build these stupid fake wannabe positions. But the moral of the story is that this moderate argument, you want to say, on one hand, you cannot look at these radical left progressives because they're going to lose all our elections. And then on the other hand, lose 2 out of 3 elections against a guy who's an orange clown-looking fascist. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's embarrassing. And that is to say that I'm not the only person who's made this realization. Not just young people like myself, but even older Democrats are now understanding the reality of our politics, which is that these moderate Democrats have no plan, no strategy, no goals beyond managing the system that we already have, beyond keeping things okay enough so that nobody gets too upset about the realities of what's happening. They have no goals to improve your lives. They have no goals to improve society, to build things up better than what they were before. They have no vision, no politics to them. And guess who does? Socialists. Guess who does? Communists. Guess who does? Hassan Piker. The Hassan Piker threat doesn't just represent a threat in terms of the establishment Israel policy. It represents a threat in terms of the establishment policy on everything. Because the strategy of the Democratic political establishment has been to pretend that nothing can happen ever. And if we pretend nothing can happen, then doing nothing isn't so bad, is it? But nobody is settling for that shit anymore. And I'm happy. And I'm proud. And I hope everyone who watches this video, and I hope everyone who's involved in politics can understand that Hassan Piker, as much as I love the guy, or as much as many people hate the guy, has nothing to do with this fight that's happening. It is a joke and it is a fake idea. Not to mention the fact that when you look at Hassan Piker and his political advocacy, and this is, to a lot of people who I know personally. A lot of people have had the well poisoned on Hassan Piker. They believe, oh, well, Hassan's done this, Hassan's done that, as I mentioned earlier on. Hassan has only ever been a stalwart and a morally upstanding advocate for progressive policy his entire career. The issue with Hassan Piker, truly, in terms of him as an actual person, as opposed to his ideas and his ideology, is that Hassan is not only sexy, he's coherent, and he's hardworking. Those three things have proven like crack cocaine for algorithms. Hassan's sexy, 6'4", jacked ass, can go on a camera every day and have half of the people just going, wow, he's kind of pretty, isn't he? Oh my God. When in reality, what we're dealing with is our serious politics. And that's been great, because it's great to have people move to the left and move towards the things that I believe in, due just to the fact that they like this guy, that this guy speaks a language that they are willing to hear, that they're willing to listen to. The Hassanabi method, trust and believe, it will be studied in the future, because this seems to be the most effective way to create political change for leftists, is to speak directly to the people, to speak with clarity, and to keep their moral posture on issues. Now, that's something that threatens democratic establishment, like I mentioned so many times already. But it's not something that threatens you. The Hassan Piker problem is not your problem. It's their problem. And let them deal with it. Let them lose.